Tim, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Tell me, who is Tim Gray?
Deep question, straight off the bat. I am an unbiased mind in terms of any mindset to do with health. However, my bias actually is what works. That's it. I've been through a lot of health issues since 2012, and multiple times doctors and specialists who are very qualified didn't know what to say, or said there was nothing wrong with me when there clearly was. So I follow what works for me. And then I don't want people to have to go through the same that I did. So therefore my content is all aimed at helping people navigate an unhealthy world. That's it.
Brilliant. So what's the journey you've been on from that, from not being well and not getting answers, from ultimately the people you'd expect to get it from? And I'm sure there's a lot of people that resonates with. What journey did you go on to then have that qualifications, if you like?
Well, my background being in e-commerce, psychology, and data analytics is what helped me, and building businesses, actually. So when I did get ill, and 1 week I was in the doctors every single day in a row, and I got to know the receptionist by first name basis, where I could text message. And this is the NHS at this point, before I was private. And I realized that, something's not right here. They can't help me. And I actually asked the doctor, I said to him, what's wrong with me? And he shrugged his shoulders and said, can't find anything wrong. And that's when, on the way home, and in fact, I couldn't drive at the time. I was really, really not in a good place. And I was like, I need to take control of this, because I was right at the end. So I grabbed a pack of Post-it notes when I got home, started writing down the symptoms.
At the end, as in end of your tether, you were just...
Yeah, it's literally at the end. I mean,
despair.
I said, I'm really close to the edge, implying, whatever. And he said,
nowhere to turn.
And I said, please don't make a note of that on the system, because once it's on the system, it doesn't. So I coped, and I got back, got a pack of Post-it notes, and wrote down all my symptoms, put them on the wall, and where they stayed for months, and put in a cause and effect. In terms of like a business strategy meeting, I did this with my health and traced everything back to actually where it came from, and got testing done myself. And that's where I realized that actually there is a systems thinking approach. This is before I'd heard about biohacking. This is before any of this Instagram malarkey got big and easy to find everyone's opinions. And I realized that there's a better way.
Yeah. You use the term biohacking there. You are known as globally now as a biohacker. Explain to me what that actually is.
Depends on which country you're in, or which part of the media you're associated with, because I think biohacking uses a lot of fringe science, and there's a lot of snake oil salesmen in it. And with any new buzz term or new industry, whether it be crypto, biohacking, whatever, there's always people that are in it for a quick buck. So I think it's muddied the waters a bit. For me, my definition of biohacking is health optimization, which is why I call everything I do health optimization podcast, health optimization summit.
Does what it says on the tin, right?
Exactly, because the goal is health optimization, to improve your health, or be the best human you can be.
And who doesn't want that, right? That's me. That's anyone watching, listening, surely.
Once upon a time, I stood on Oxford Street for a day and asked people if they wanted to biohack themselves.
How long ago was this?
2018. Less than 0.1% of people even knew what biohacking was.
So therefore they can't answer the question of any...
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay, do you want to optimize your health? 94% of people said yes. 5% of people said a loved one. 1% of people are busy, London, lunch, get out my way, just another person.
That's overwhelming though, right?
So it's 0.1% versus 99%. Being a marketer before, in my former life, I kind of like, wow, this is quite significant. So we've got 99% saturation versus 0.1%. So health optimization means doing anything you have to do to optimize your health. And the things that work for millennia, since the beginning of time, were provided for us on the planet. The thing is we've now introduced so many different things: toxic light, toxic food, utilization of chemicals in just about everything. Our bodies didn't evolve with all of these things. So health optimization is to remove as many things as possible, to be as natural as possible, but still enjoying some of the fruits, and then doing some of the things to reverse, like mimicking nature where possible using technology, reversing the damages of technology, if that makes sense. So
it does.
if you don't stand in the garden with your shoes off, which is backed by science of grounding, if you don't get a chance, get some grounding bed sheets. You can plug them in, you're earthed out while you sleep. That's using technology to reverse the damages of modern times. So health optimization for me is literally doing what you need to do to be as simple as possible using technology or not.
Brilliant. Is there any stigma from 2018 to now 2025 where a doctor, a professor had that sort of gravitas and quite literally the profession that you go to, where the same people that you couldn't get answers from, that countless others have an experience where they're suffering from something, they've got symptoms that cannot be diagnosed. Where do you sit with anyone that would challenge you as not being a doctor, not being a professor, but actually having the qualifications and the experience and the knowledge to be able to help these people?
For me, it's all about the result. That's it. Really is, that's it. And we are all very similar, but we're all very different. So, for instance, if you have, and I don't ever claim to be medically qualified. I often am asked, oh, are you a doctor?
Because you don't aspire to be though either, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, I don't want that bias, to be quite honest. And, you know, how I live is trusting people and heuristics around me, such as if I don't know a topic, I go to the person that knows that topic, and I either learn from them if I need it. Like, for instance, financial advice. Okay, I've studied it a fair bit, but if I want an expert, I use an expert, okay? If I need something that's really deep in medical science, I go to a doctor. If you go to a doctor and you say to him, I've got this chest infection, or I'm not sleeping properly, does he say, what's your diet like? Are you getting any natural light? Are you drinking tap water or filtering it? Are you, just tell me about your lifestyle. No, they don't. They go, here's an antibiotic, or here's an antidepressant, or here's whatever, okay?
A lot of people go into that doctor's appointment, I'm guilty of this, when it's happened to me, wanting to come out with something as well. So you get a diagnosis and you get medicine, you get drugs to take, which isn't always necessary or needed, right?
No, it's not. I mean, we evolved without it. And, people say, oh, we're living longer statistically. Well, yes, but when you factor in deaths at birth, no, we're not. So it's like we're using more medicines than ever. And I think the statistic is on average there's 7 medications or something or other. Don't quote me on that exact number, but for the average person, we didn't evolve with that. And a lot of these things cause problems long term. And so taking it as naturally as you can is the right way forward. So to go back to my point is, if that person came to me and said, Tim, can you do me a favor? Can you tell me how to fix my sleep? Because I'm awake, my brain is going 200 miles an hour as I jump into bed. Well, what would a doctor that is pharmaceutical trained give? By bias, straight away, it's not about the result, it's about what he's been trained with. Here's a drug. With me, I'd be like, okay, do you have a Wi-Fi router in your room? Because that's shown with some people to affect sleep. Is your room pitch black? Have you got lights on in the room? Are you playing with your phone before bed? And do you wear blue blocking glasses to block out the blue light? Let's look at what the 2 or 3 hours before your bed is and what your bedroom's like. Like, start there. And then if it doesn't work, sure, go to the drugs. But the point is why would you start with a chemical to reverse something that doesn't necessarily need a chemical? You don't have a deficiency of a drug. You have something else that needs figuring out. So my bias is the result.
Yeah.
It may be the drug, maybe not.
Which is reverse engineering, right? It might be unorthodox. It might be, like you say, it could be the temperature of the room that they just hadn't thought of. You've got your heating set way too high and they haven't even thought that because there's a lack of education, dare I say. Is there one common denominator, if you like, of people that are coming to you with specific ones? Could be lack of sleep, it could be nutrition, how best to keep fit. Is there one thing that you feel people are gravitating, wanting answers for?
So, just to be clear, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional.
It's not advice.
I'm a data guy that looks at...
But that's my point, that you'll have stats, so you'll be like,
exactly.
There's an overwhelming number of people that seem to not be able to sleep. That's where I'm going with
That's probably the biggest one.
Is it?
Yeah, sleep is always, and it's, as we know, like for instance, after a night out or a bad night's sleep, it affects you the most. You'll be grumpy, shorter fused. Some people are living like that, and they're actually completely different to how they could be. So sleep is the number one thing, I would say. Second is like, oh, I'm getting too many colds or getting the flu too often or I'm exhausted, whatever. Typically, sleep fixes all of that. You know, for instance, my mum had, I think it was long COVID, but I'm not quite sure on the actual, you know, it had been going on for months. And it's like, well, your body's just not recovering from it because you're not sleeping enough. It's like when we measured her sleep with, you know, an ultra-human ring. So I actually gave her an antihistamine to have, which helped her sleep for a week, and then it was gone. Whereas she had been trying for months to fix this long COVID, lack of energy, not being able to go for a walk or anything, leaving, you know, the house too much. So sleep is the one that pretty much impacts everything else. I think I get asked that probably on a ratio of 7 or 8 to 1 of anything else.
Mental health's talked about a lot, and when I say talked about a lot, it's good that it's been talked about now compared to years previous where, you know, people would lock up their emotions and so on. So there's an outpouring now of kind of people saying they're anxious and finding life intimidating, cost of living crisis, fallout from COVID. And of course, there's a direct correlation to what we eat, when we eat, what we do to keep ourselves fit, which of course helps us in our own mental state. So if you flip that to make it myself, trying to be the best version of myself, but busy life, dad, husband, you know, work can take me all over the place and so on. But I want to try and be that best version of myself. What do I prioritize? And I'm throwing a lot at you here, but it's that sort of almost the daily lifestyle of optimum time to get up. Is there a morning routine that works for me? What should I eat? What time should I go to bed? Is there an optimum there, or is it different for everybody?
Yes and no. That's the answer.
I get that, because everyone's
Yes, no.
different. But if you were to anyway go into a generic answer to that, that could and should work for someone, what would that look like?
The first question is why do you sleep? And I'll ask you this right now. Why do you sleep for you?
To recharge for tomorrow.
Okay. How much sleep do you get?
Not enough. Answer to your question, between 6 and 7 hours.
Okay. How important is your health and energy?
It's so important to me.
How important is it to go to bed an hour earlier?
So it's on me.
Completely.
It's on me.
It's 100%. You know, actually,
it's a lack of discipline. I am guilty. You tell me off this. I'm guilty of being on my phone, emails, responding to people, and then it's too late.
It's prioritization. That's it. When for instance, I'm lucky enough to have had the gun to my head where I was running a company, doing multiple millions, very successful, and then couldn't get out of bed. And I had a gun to my head. It's like, I have got 40 plus people relying on me. I'm at the bottom. I need to sort this out. When you're deficient of an hour's sleep a day and you're just not feeling optimal, that's not a breaking point. It's not something that makes you jump up and go, I've got to change this. But when people hit rock bottom, for instance, you see people that have had amputations and things, you compare them after the amputation a few years later, once they've done rehabilitation and worked on themselves, they're actually significantly happier than they were before, because there's been this major event that's made them rethink everything. Your daily deficiency of 1 hour of sleep isn't a major hit. It's just a small little thing that's impacting you. It's the same with us breathing the air in London. It's terrible air quality, but we don't notice it, so we don't make a difference. And in psychology, there's actually something called change blindness, okay? For instance, if you look at your passport photo from 10 years ago, when it runs out, you'll notice a big change in you, okay, to the next one. But if you looked at yourself yesterday, you wouldn't, because the threshold is under 20% change. Okay, it's the same with your partner. You know, they always want us to notice that their hair's changed. Well, if it's gone from down here to up here, you're going to notice because it's over 20% threshold. It's the same with affecting change on things like this. So if you woke up tomorrow after having 2 hours sleep and you're like, I can't even operate today, it's breaking point. You're going to go, tonight I'm going to prioritize my sleep. I'm going to have that extra time because I know today was a bad day. But if it's always just a little bit under optimal, you're never going to do anything about it. I got to the point where now I realize the importance of these tiny little wins, compounding effect of all these little things throughout the day that mean that I can have a sharp brain, good energy, good immune system, because sleep isn't something you have to do just to tick a box. Sleep is something that should be respected more than anything else that we do in our day, and the things that lead to better sleep. For instance, do you eat within 3 hours of going to bed? Most people do. Okay, so your digestive system is going at full speed, and it says detoxifying the body, it's digesting food. Okay? Digesting that food, breaking down proteins, neurotransmitters, helps the brain fire up. What happens in your sleep? You're not detoxifying, you're not repairing the damage that you've done to the body during the day while you're sleeping. You're digesting food for energy at the wrong time. For instance, have you had blue light in front of you before bed? Oh, your body thinks it's midday because there's so much blue light. So your brain's going, again, neurotransmitters. This is why so many people say they're wired but tired. They get into bed and then their brain starts going, and it's like, why do I always do this? You can go and get a sleeping tablet, or you can actually figure out the things so that you can respect your sleep properly. That is the biggest change that anyone, especially with mental health issues, depression, any of these, if you respect your sleep and the things that lead to better sleep, your life will have the biggest change of all. That's my belief.
It's compelling. You've articulated it so well. I need to work on that, and that was a big part of wanting to talk to you today, very selfishly, is what can I learn as well as sharing. So now talk to me about the rest of the day. So I've gone to bed at the right time, and I wake up in the morning. I will try and get some exercise in, and I'll try and get fresh air. So that course could be a run in the fresh air, or if I've got a gym at home, I'll try and get equipment outside. Tough being English in the winter, but you know what I'm saying? That's the effort I'm making, and then have fruit with yogurt and try and eat sort of good food through the day. What works for you, and what am I doing sort of stuff right there?
Sleep optimization starts with how you start your day. So from the moment you get up, that's when you're working to have better sleep so you can recover better in the evening. That's this one mindset shift that everyone that's listening to this should understand. Okay, so you should really plan your day around what you're going to be sleeping like. And it sounds ridiculous. It's like, well, I want to live alive. I want to live and I want to be awake. Okay, cool. But bearing in mind that you're not going to live as long if you don't sleep properly. This really is that simple. The biggest longevity hack is sleep. So optimizing your day for that. So for instance, for me, I will start with hydration first of all. Okay, so it's either water, remineralized, which is filtered, reverse osmosis specifically. I'm not putting more chemicals in. I'm not having chlorine in my water, which then helps kill the gut bacteria, which means you don't digest your food as good, which means you don't get your nutrients as good. So you start with hydration. Helps you detoxify, supports your adrenals with the right minerals for your electrical, because our veins and blood are electrical wires. And so if you haven't got enough electrolytes, minerals, then you'll be stressed, you'll be stressing your adrenals. So hydrating on waking is one of the most important things. I then wait usually 60 to 90 minutes after waking to have my first coffee. That's because if you have coffee as soon as you wake up, you get a cortisol spike from coffee, from the caffeine, and not your body naturally doing it. So then you rely on the coffee to have your cortisol spike to get you kick-started in the day. Whereas if you wait 60 to 90 minutes, your body's already done that for you, and then you get the boost from the coffee without relying on it. Okay, so these are two fundamental things. Now, in terms of nutrition, as long as you're eating more than 3 hours before bed, what you do in that window from, say 9 or 8, 9 through till, say 6 p.m. is up to you and what you need as a human to operate properly. For instance, for me, I operate best on protein. I'm very thin type. I have to work very hard to not just be even thinner type.
I'm similar to that.
Yeah, I would call it ectomorph, and some people listen to this and say, oh, I don't believe in the ectomorph, endomorph, mesomorph style thing, but ectomorphs are generally the skinnier types that can work really hard and never get really, really big, okay? As a result, we break down muscle tissue very quickly. Don't put fat on so much, but if we do, we get like a muffin top because of the stress and the cortisol.
No one's ever explained this to me before. And I get grief from friends that know I don't have the best diet, and I'm like, why are you not fatter, basically?
Yeah, it's metabolism and frame and various other things. That can be down to gut bacteria. Actually, there's quite a lot of interesting work coming around about the gut bacteria specifically, where they actually swapped obese, I think it was rats, gut bacteria with non-obese, and then the non-obese got obese because of the gut bacteria swap, because of the breaking down the foods. So anyway, I like to be protein-led, okay? And that doesn't mean carnivore, it doesn't mean excluding plants. I mean, I eat a well-rounded diet of meat, plants. Herbs, coffee, teas, maple syrups, honeys, but protein is the most important thing because it's our building blocks. It's the thing that helps our body repair, okay? So protein is the most important thing for me. From those proteins, they break down eventually into neurotransmitters, which helps with mental clarity, brain power, or if you have, emotional issues or depression or whatever, again, having a good protein diet is important. So why I find that a lot of people that have gone full plant-based, for instance, and I have nothing against vegans or anything like that, or anyone that chooses to not eat meat. However, the amino acids you have in plant-based foods generally isn't enough in the right ratios. So therefore, you find that some people that have gone from eating unhealthy but weren't depressed to eating just plants and being quite depressed and frail. Not like that for everyone, but it is for a good portion of them, I would say. So really understanding what foods you should be having to fuel your mind and body through the day. For me, my routine then would be after having my breakfast, which would be, again, high protein with some carbs because I need carbs to fuel me personally. I know some people that just, if they have carbs, they get fat straight away. In fact, I lose weight when I have carbs because my metabolism speeds up. So I include some. What do you feel best from? That would be my question.
Are you asking me in terms of what do I do?
Well,
just
for instance,
do what
you say fruit and yogurt. Do you feel like that's the best fit for you, or do you think you could do better and feel better with something else?
I feel like I've eaten worse at times. I've been guilty of having fry-ups in the morning. I've been guilty of having, toast with Nutella on and so on. So if I compare it, which is kind of fruit and yogurt is healthier. The only challenge with that, me knowing my own metabolism, is I'm hungry within an hour and a half of that. If I have that at 8 o'clock, I'm not going to make it to lunch. Whereas there's other food I could eat that sees me through. So I might compromise on what I eat in the morning to try and compensate for a busy day, which may not mean I'm eating the healthiest food.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that actually triggers us, our feeling full, is actually protein. Like, I challenge anyone in this room, or anyone listening, to try and eat 600 grams of ribeye steak. You can't do it. I mean, you have to be a real monster to be able to do that. I managed 350 grams. Sweet potato, rice, anything carbs, yogurt maybe. Yeah, it's actually very easy to get through that much. People get through a whole bag of, several bags of stuff like this, right?
It's really interesting.
So protein triggers our fullness, and it's often when we eat, for instance, more and more and more and more carbs, it's when we hit our protein threshold in all of that food that we then feel full. Understanding that and bearing in mind that proteins break down into sugars eventually anyway, it's just a harder process, whereas having carbs, like for instance, if you have a Coca-Cola, if you're feeling faint because your blood sugar's too low and you have a Coca-Cola, it's going to hit you immediately. If you have something protein, it's going to take longer to get to that. So sometimes there are cases where if your metabolism isn't quite right, then you should have short-term carbs. And
give it a boost.
Yeah, I mean, I like sushi rice, for instance, or sushi, not the raw stuff, because I think it's bonkers having stuff that can have nasty parasites in when you look into it.
I'm guilty of having that almost every day. I go to Itchy around the corner and pile into all the, thinking that's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I used to love sushi. I used to have it every day until I realized that I had mercury poisoning, which was in that Post-it note thing we discussed earlier on. The top thing was mercury toxicity. And when I checked my levels, they were like 5 times higher than like the average. And that was from having farmed salmon. And if you look on YouTube about salmon farming and what they're fed and where the food comes from and the levels of mercury and stuff in them and the level of parasites in this sushi, I actually got parasites from having sushi, and I had to take a pretty heavy drug to actually get rid of those parasites. It affected me very badly, and since then I haven't had any raw food. So,
wow.
It's
a minefield though, right? I mean, this is your lived experience, your journey. I'm still eating this sushi thinking I'm being healthy, and that's the challenge, right? There are so many things that I think anyone watching, listening, and I'm guilty of, is I'm taking supplements. I'm buying them from a brand that I think is good and has good reviews, but then I could name it to you and you could say, this is why they're not. It's a real minefield, isn't it? Is there any kind of supplements that you swear by? And that could be, green juice in the morning. It could be bolstering your vitamin intake through, or do you just need to focus more on actually making the diet work for you?
If it's a choice between a Pret sandwich a McDonald's burger and sushi, I'd pick the sushi every time, just to be clear. So you're not doing anything wrong.
That's where I've got to, yeah. And that's my world being quite quick, grab food and so on, yeah.
So I would probably be a little bit more strategic with that and make sure that I had a meal prep service or something or other so that it's just there ready for you. Or, for instance, when I moved home, I made sure I moved home. I actually brought somewhere near a Waitrose as opposed to one of the supermarkets, so that I had access to the best food on demand, so I can just buy one day at a time if I want.
So that was a deliberate life choice.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny, I was saying last night to a friend, it's like, I'm so lucky to live here and have all these things around. I mean, I can order Dalesford milk, and this is very privileged stuff, obviously. I can order Dalesford milk and bone broth to my door in 22 minutes. And I was like, but it's not luck. It's like, I brought this place specifically for this stuff. So, you know, Atomic Habits is a famous book, very famous book. It's set yourself up for success, not for failure, by doing the things that you trip over. And for me, these are the types of decisions that lead to a healthier life. Yeah. When you're in a city, obviously.
You then went on to become incredibly qualified, knowledgeable, but it's not easy to ultimately become an entrepreneur and set up your own business. You've done that. And you've built your personal brand alongside that. You know, public speaking, podcast. I want to know whether that was all planned as part of the Post-it notes, or certain things started manifesting and becoming obvious to you once you started moving forward, because the entrepreneurial hours are long hours typically, and you've got to manage your own biohacking life. You know, did you skew into the late nights to get the business set up? Did you have any stress coming in, or did you manage to manage that as well as being successful?
It's a great question. I'm just having fun. I'm literally just having fun, nothing else. For me, I needed to fix my health, and then I wanted to help people not have to go through that.
Great mission.
I would say in my 20s, I would work 18-hour days, you know, when I was in e-commerce, and I would never want to be anywhere else. In fact, I turned down holidays and all sorts of things because I loved sitting in front of my computer so much. But now, as I've grown older, and I would say, you know, quote unquote, more successful, it's about, like with you actually, meeting some of your team before coming in here today. They know the vision and the mission of what you're trying to achieve. And when you understand working with people that are smarter than you in other areas, and you surround yourself with those people, your life becomes a lot better, a lot easier, and you can help more people quicker. So I would say, no, I don't compromise on my sleep ever. I do not work too much ever. I would say.
So they're non-negotiables.
Yeah, they're non-negotiables. And I have built it from that initially by necessity because I couldn't operate enough. I've got a friend that runs digital courses, and he is doing extremely well, like many millions. And I said to him, you know, what's your day look like? He said, I get up, I have one call, do a couple of emails, that's it. I'm just too knackered. He has built his business because he's too knackered to do anything more. But as a result, he's become a delegating machine and utilizing or leveraging people that are smarter than him, more energy than him to build him a business. He's earning millions while he's knackered. And I think with that mindset, I'm reading a book called The Who, Not the How right now. And it's really helped me refine my approach of hiring amazing people to understand that there's a who for every how. And you've clearly done that here, which is amazing to see actually. So yeah, I don't compromise. I get the right people for the job. And obviously as you scale or you get bigger and bigger and bigger, you have more resources and you can pull more people in, and you have to do it in stages. You can't just hire a chief of staff and a COO and CFO and all these things overnight. But as soon as you're in that mindset of who can I work with, it's amazing. And I think one similarity that I picked up on before we came in today was that I love people. I really love people. I love understanding people. I love interacting with people, good people, and avoiding the drama people. But as a result, people love that. You get to know amazing people. You end up having an amazing network, and you end up building significantly better, and people want to help you do it. And that's exactly what's happened with the Health Optimization Summit, everything I do. And I see the similarities in what you've done here.
Yeah, building a tribe. And again, I think that's the alignment is people trying to be the best person themselves. And there's a discipline that goes with that. There's clearly a real process, you know, kind of you'll follow a process and you'll sort of make your own rules and then try and stick to them. When did you last have a McDonald's or a KFC or a pizza? Or is it just, again, something you won't do?
It's a good question. I like this. I'm very open about when I cheat. For instance, I was in Stuttgart airport, must have been a year ago now, and it's like there's no food around. It's horrendous. There's only a McDonald's, and I'd done a McDonald's post the week before talking about why is eating McDonald's so bad for your health, and it's like one that went viral. I was sitting in Stuttgart airport, and I was like, do I lack integrity if I have one, or can I make this a challenge or a test in some form? I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. So I ordered a quarter pounder with cheese, and I ordered chicken wings. My flight got cancelled. I got put in a hotel nearby, and then I spent the rest of the next day on the toilet. It really destroyed me because my body is so not used to it. So, but a Franco Manca's sourdough pizza from time to time isn't going to kill me.
That's what I wanted to hear. Yeah. It's like, do you allow yourself to do that? I think the relatability that there are people that we could sort of name, like the chap that's trying to kind of stay youthful forever and got his son's blood pumping through him. So
Brian.
No one's aspiring to do that. He's proving a point. He's pioneering and so on. But bringing biohacking to everyday life, it's like, okay, Tim is allowing himself to have a McDonald's every now and again and so on, and it becomes something where, because that's probably how I'm living. It's sort of 5 days out of 7. I'm probably doing something close to what you might agree with but I'm 100% diving into to grab food I shouldn't, having a chocolate bar, you know what I mean? Just because I don't want to totally cut that side of things out.
Well, I'll tell you this. Someone told me this, must have been like 8-10 years ago. A guy goes to the doctor and says, "Doctor, I want to live forever." Probably not the best person to ask, but whatever. "I want to live forever." And he said, "Do you drink?" "Nope." He said, "Do you smoke?" "Nope." "Do you eat lots of fatty, crappy foods?" "Do you have unprotected sex?" "Nope." "Do you go skydiving?" "Nope." He goes, "Why do you want to live forever?" And it's like, I choose to be optimal 95% of the time. 5% of the time I say, what the hell? Nothing ridiculous, but why not? If you want that croissant because you feel like you want that croissant, as long as it doesn't become the rule, it is the exception, because everyone says, "Oh, I broke this rule today, so I'll do it tomorrow and the next day and the next day." It's like people I know that haven't drunk for years, then they have a glass of wine one night and they end up having a glass of wine for 5 nights in a row, and it's just like, and then they're back on it. Exception, not the rule. So you do want to live.
You've got to live, right? Yeah. You've got to live. Yeah, everything you just said, it sounds boring.
Whereas Brian Johnson, for instance, I invited him to speak at the summit, and he said, "I have a 90-day, 100% record of perfect sleep. I'm not going to come across the pond." And it's just like, I mean, it's amazing stats, and I mean, to see how far an Olympian sleeper can go, it's a bit boring, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's so obsessed with the stats and the data that life's not actually happening outside of that, which we can all have an opinion on, I guess. Mm-hmm. I'm conscious of time. Mm-hmm. You've gone through your own journey to have huge perspective and maturity looking back now, and I imagine one of the things that's particularly enjoyable for you is there's no destination in context of biohacking, because it's constantly evolving, constantly learning. But if there's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self, me, if there's one thing where you say, this is what you really should do, and maybe also something you really shouldn't do, that, dare I say, we just don't know, what would that be?
Oh, it's a really great question. There's so many answers to it as well. I think the one that comes to my mind, and I trust my gut feeling on this, a line I heard about 3 years ago was, "Are you the type or quality of man that you would want your daughter to date?"
I have 2 daughters.
Yeah, and it's like, where I was like, no, I was a dirtbag. No, I would not want my daughter to go near a guy like me. It's like, that was quite a defining thing to hear, actually, for me, because it's like, how are you when you open the door? How do you greet people? How do you treat your body? Like, would you make a good husband or father? It's like, actually, no, I wouldn't. I'd be horrendous. But that then filters down into so many different things as you as a man or as a human. So while it may not be health related directly, it actually is, because it spirals down. I would want the best for my daughter.
It goes back to discipline and integrity, having integrity for yourself. Use that kind of the dirtbag. So there was things you weren't agreeing with, but just allowing to happen, and then you have an accountability back to yourself, which I think is really powerful.
So yeah, that would be the thing, is like, be the best human you can be, but until you actually have it put to something else to view that from another angle, such as, no, I wouldn't want my daughter to go anywhere near someone like me. It's like, actually, that helps quite a lot. And one thing not to do.
I say that because I just feel like, even the phone at night, it's like we sat down with the microphones and you mentioned that you're going to move that away because it's bad for you. I haven't even thought of that before. And that's in a microclimate here. I'm just thinking how many people are doing things that actually genuinely, if in your world of that whole experience, there's one thing actually you just don't realize how bad it is. It sounds like it's probably sleep. Because of what you said, just not prioritizing.
In biohacking terms, physically, yes. I would use a double negative. I would say, don't not journal. Because I think obviously my background in psychology and cognitive hypnotherapy and that area of sciences for quite a significant part of my life. And I've always meditated or tried to. But until I started journaling, actually, and writing down the raw thoughts. And as an extrovert, typically, words come out on the paper better than they do on the inside. That understanding of my mind and what I need, which helps me have realizations around sleep or these things, or the noise that you hear through media and people around you, the journaling and not doing the journaling, and that falls into a morning routine. And there's a book called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. I've done it every day since 2019, just before COVID happened. Changed my life because the most effective things that people did was their morning routine. Not going for hours and hours and hours like the billionaires do, because they're doing that once they've made their money. But you can't make money and have a successful life if you spend your day doing your morning routine. But meditating and journaling and affirmations and visualizations and exercise, moving, all of these things fit into a healthy mind. And if you've got a healthy mind, everything else becomes easier. If you've got an unhealthy mind, everything becomes more difficult. Ties into that. If you haven't slept enough, everything becomes more difficult, including your mental health. So it starts with sleep.
Sitting here now, how would you define success?
While money makes everything easier and everything more difficult, money is just something that gets you access to other things. And I don't think it's money. I think money becomes a score to compare how well you're doing or not. But really it's about, if you're to write down what your perfect day looks like, really vividly writing it down, if you can get close to that, then that's success. I heard a story, and most people will know it. It's like the businessman goes to a little village and sees the fisherman, and he says, if you get another boat and another employee, blah, 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 and it goes on until he goes, well, what does that all get me? He goes, it gets you a house on the beach with a boat. He goes, I kind of already got that.
Yeah.
So
without all the problems of managing people,
exactly.
And I get it.
Yeah. So I think success is writing down what your ideal day or life looks like, working towards it, because we get lost in all the calls, all the emails, all the making money, saving the money, losing the money, making more money, whatever. But really, it comes down to, are you enjoying your day? And that's why I go back to my point is, I am just having fun. And trying to help as many people.
You can see that in your eyes. And there's a visualization and a manifestation that's continual through this conversation from when you stopped and weren't getting answers from doctors and then wrote it down in that kind of post-it note thing and spread everything in front of me to then, because you're so process-led, map it all together and not only live your life better, but create a business opportunity out of it that's undoubtedly helping other people. And that's probably my last question for you. If you could fast forward, I'm not going to put a timeline on it, but if you had a purpose, if you had a mission you'd love to achieve, is there a milestone? Is there something that you're aiming towards, or is it just to keep evolving, helping people to be the best version of yourself, themselves, and kind of crave that information?
Not through partially ego, which obviously ego can be bad, but it can also serve us very well.
It's driving you in the right way, though.
I would say I want to leave legacy of making the world a better place. Because the system is broken, it is well and truly broken, it's biased, it's corrupt, and not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but regardless of your views on the new president, Maha, Make America Healthy Again, and RFK and what he's doing, regardless of your views on politics, this is to one side, they are making some fundamental changes because there are some things that are so fundamentally broken. This is a form of legacy. And I think, Trump is going in trying to affect as much change in as many angles. Whatever his agenda is irrelevant. But the point is it's having a massive impact and legacy. And I think that will make a healthier world, I'm hoping, if it delivers. So part of what I'm doing is legacy, to help as many people so we can help change the world and be healthier. Because we're the sickest generation. We are, I think the newest generation is the first generation to live less than their parents. I think I read a few weeks ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's just insane. I mean, people stuck to their phones all day. They want the money to be able to do stuff, but they haven't got the grit to make it happen, and they're privileged and want to stick on TikTok all day long. So I think helping people have that awareness and be healthier helps the world be a better place. And on a, let's just say, plant medicine journey, I had a realization that every one of us should be on this planet to help make it a better place. That's our higher purpose. That is ultimately my higher purpose. And if you're not leaving it a better place and you're just literally taking money from everyone you can so that you can live a better life.
Living a locust mentality, just suck it all in.
It doesn't mean not making money. It doesn't mean whatever. It means really leaving the world a better place. And that's really what I want to do. Yeah, truly.
Well, I can feel that. And I think your whole mapping out of how you've got to this far, let alone where you're going, exudes that. And thank you for making time in a really busy schedule to talk. I've learned loads. I've probably got another 100 questions I could ask you, but thank you so much for making time to talk today, Tim. It's been a pleasure.